I was out in the City of London earlier this week filming a video for the Pubs channel, for Tweedy Pubs. It was about the pubs in the Fenchurch Street area, and the fifth pub on that tour was the Ship on Talbot Court. I found this beautiful article from 1767. The publican at the time, Mr. Stiff, took a bet that he could walk all the way to Maidenhead, I don't know why they chose Maidenhead, and back from his pub in the space of 24 hours. According to the article, he did have some challenges to overcome, including the badness of the weather, and had to stop at several other houses. I think he means other pubs, so it turned into a bit of a pub crawl along the way, but made it back with 2 hours to spare. And the article also notes that he was of great age at that time, so a 50 to 60 mile round walk from here to Maidenhead and back, pretty impressive. I found this story really spellbinding, fascinating. A couple of people actually wanted to know how old Mr. Stiff was. There is that note in the article that he was of great age. So I spent a little time looking at some old records, trying to figure out if I could find this particular Mr. Stiff. It is quite an unusual surname. I managed to find some tax lists, which are not particularly fun or interesting records in themselves, but there were several mentions around about that date of 1766 of a Samuel Stiff living in what I believe is this parish, St Andrew Hubbards. So I think now we have probably a first name, a likely first name, Samuel. Going on from there, I looked at the birth, marriage and death records for the area, and presumably the local church, St Andrew Hubbards, had compiled a list of burials. On October the 7th, 1771, a Samuel Stiff was buried in the parish. His age at death was recorded as 63. So if we work backwards to that article of 1767, which happened to also be in October, so that was almost exactly 4 years prior to his death, then he would have been 59 at the time of that article. I looked at the wills as well for that era and found a will for Samuel Stiff, which I think is a pretty good match. Today, of course, we would not consider somebody of age 59 to be of great age. Average life expectancy in the 1700s is somewhere in the range of 35 to 40, very heavily skewed by the rate of infant mortality. I think the consensus is that if you made it past your first 5 years, you stood an odds-on chance of getting to 50 or so. 59 was perhaps not a great age in terms of an exceptional age for somebody having lived to. We have these other near neighbours of Mr. Stiff who'd made it to slightly older than him, one into his 70s just. But it certainly was an exceptional age to have walked 50-something miles. I think another aspect of this wonderful story is trying to figure out the route that Mr. Stiff may have taken from the Ship in Talbot Court all the way to Maidenhead. Fortunately, we have a series of roughly contemporary maps covering all of the likely route, thanks to arguably the 18th century's most prolific cartographer, John Rocque. I think Mr. Stiff would have started by heading for Hyde Park Corner. In this era, that's the point where the London milestones were measured from. Today, it's Charing Cross instead. All along this route, the milestones are marked on the map if we zoom in. For example, the first milestone here before we've even left the vicinity of Hyde Park. And here's the second one just beyond Kensington. From Kensington to Hammersmith, skirting past Chiswick, and then on through Brentford, then on to Hounslow, where we get to the edge of this map, which covers 10 miles around London. Now we move on to John Rocque's map of Middlesex, on from Hounslow towards this probably now long forgotten area of countryside called Heathrow. Not quite sure what became of that. Then beyond there to where we leave this map at Colnbrook. From there we move on to this map of Berkshire, also by John Rocque. We can see Colnbrook here. After that, the 18th milepost, the 19th milepost and the 20th milepost, and we're at Upton. After Upton, we're on to this other sheet of John Rocque's map of Berkshire. The numbers are a bit hard to read here, but I think we have the 22nd, the 23rd, and the 24th milestones, possibly the 25th there as well, as we head into Taplow. Taplow is just the other side of the River Thames from Maidenhead. And then finally, we're on to this third sheet of John Rocque's map of Berkshire, and we can see Maidenhead. Although the 26 mile post is not numbered, I think if we zoom in, you can just about see it by the side of the road there, and certainly out beyond Maidenhead, we can see the 27th, the 28th, and so on. So I think Mr. Stiff's walk would have ended just over the other side of Maidenhead Bridge, just before he got into the town of Maidenhead proper. Well, I say his walk ended there. He then had to turn round and go back and do it all over again. One thing that puzzled me when I first read the article is, why is the distance so oddly specific? Why the 26 milestone at Maidenhead rather than just, say, walking to Maidenhead itself and back? If you follow the route that I've outlined here on these old maps, it's about 3.5 miles from the ship on Talbot Court to Hyde Park Corner. If you add 3.5 to 26 to 26 to 3.5, the number of miles in total that you get that Mr. Stiff walked on that day is 59. As we know, Mr. Stiff was also 59 years old at that time. I can't help but think those two things aren't a complete coincidence. So this is an event that was undertaken for a bet well over 250 years ago. And it all happened in the space of 24 hours. And it still can be remembered today. We still have this record today. You are currently watching a video of me talking about Samuel Stiff more than 250 years after his death. So I think that's quite inspiring, really, that in a single day you can do something, even if it's a ridiculous thing based on a bet, that will be remembered more than a quarter of a millennium later.